start with you. I was just wondering what you think perhaps saw that sort of late turnaround in the equity market here in Australia into the red. I mean, I know the yen was strengthening, and we saw the Nikkei pare back earlier, bigger gains. Would that have had any sort of weight on what was going on the ASX 200?
Friday, Happy New Year. It was a pretty lacklustre day on the Australian share market, but putting it in the context of what we've seen in the last few weeks, it's been a very strong rise for the Aussie share market. We've seen a gain of about 100 points every couple of weeks, and in fact in the last month we've seen a gain of around about 3%. So it's not surprising to see some consolidation around these levels. However, if we have a look at the performance of the Australian share market in the context of our region, you're right that we underperformed. We did see the Japanese yen having a positive impact on the Japanese market, which actually saw a 32-month high today, and the Chinese market also doing well. Yesterday we saw a rise of 3.1% for the Shanghai Composite, and today backed up with a 0.4% rise. So the fact we did see a fall of about 0.1% on the Australian share market was a little bit disappointing. If we have a look at what really weighed on the Aussie share market, we know that one of the things we've been watching daily is the iron ore price, and we did see a decrease of 0.2% in iron ore. So the material sector was a big weight, and the industrial sector also weighed. On the flip side though, we saw healthcare making a bit of a recovery after some recent weakness, but also the gold miners are worth a mention. We saw a strong performance from gold miners. We saw Newcrest Mining up by around about 2.1%, and we also saw a lot of stocks on the Australian share market having good performances individually. We have a look at 52-week highs. We saw BT Investments hitting a 52-week high. Kathmandu also did well today. We saw realestate.com reaching a 52-week high, AJ Lucas, as well as FKP Properties. So some good performances on the property side in terms of individual performances, but all up, if we have a look at the blue chips, I guess they underperform the region.
The Rio production report for 2012 beat certainly the company's guidance in terms of iron ore output, and the expansion remains on track for the year.
I think it was a strong result which came from Rio Tinto, and we saw that in terms of the share price performance. If we have a look at the intraday graph of Rio Tinto shares, this is what it looks like. We did see a sell-off coming into the result, but you can see as soon as that result came up, we did see Rio Tinto paring back those losses and ending quite flat for the day. If we have a look at this particular report, we know that the important part of the production report is the iron ore, because that makes up more than 90% of earnings before interest and tax for Rio Tinto. So if we have a look at the iron ore component, it was a record in 2012. We saw a rise of 4% in terms of production, and we did see that beating on a yearly basis as well as on a December quarter basis. Also, importantly, we are seeing expansion in this area. If we have a look at the current run rate, it's about 237 million tonnes per annum. Now that's going to go up to 290,000 tonnes per annum by the end of the year, and then by the first half of 2015, that should be at about 360,000. And importantly, all the approvals are in place here. We've seen a strong recovery in iron ore prices. In fact, prices up about 70% from September now. So a huge positive coming through from that iron ore component. I guess one of the negatives coming through was that the copper estimates weren't really met. So we did see a miss for copper, but that's a much smaller part of Rio Tinto's profitability. But all in all, I think we saw a positive reaction coming through on the back of that production report coming through, and that iron ore record for 2012, together with that rise in prices, boding well for Rio Tinto.
And well, actually we got it yesterday, didn't we, after market close, this counter bid, alternative bid, $1.10. Julia, what do you make of this move by Altamont Capital and also VF Corp? What do you think it's a bit opportunistic, the fact that they've seen an insider like Paul Nord make a $1.10 a share offer, and they think, well, you know, why don't we have a go too?
I think all up this is good news for Billabong shareholders, and it strengthens the probability that we may see a bid potentially go through for Billabong. We have a look at Billabong's share price. We did see a strong rise today, up by 16%, but it's still at 98 cents, and that compares to the bids on the table at the moment at $1.10. We know that the bids in the past that we saw in 2012 really came about after the due diligence program, due diligence period, so that's really going to be key. So we are going to see Altamont and VF now go into that due diligence project period, which takes 6 weeks, and we know that other private equity bids have fallen apart after due diligence, so we're going to be watching this one closely. But the fact that we are seeing another bid on the table, good news for Billabong. If we have a look at Altamont, it's interested in the Billabong brand. If we have a look at VF, well, they have quite a bit of experience as well, and it looks like they've gotten someone on board to help them them with some of their brands. So Altamont Scott, an ex-Oakley person to help out there. And if we have a look at VF, they have over 1,000 retail stores. So certainly well leveraged to, I guess, try and get some upside out of a potential purchase from Billabong. But Billabong shares doing extremely well today, up by 16%. And I think that's just reflecting the increased probability that we may see a bid go through.